clicks are eroding and SEOs are becoming backed into a corner, but it's only happening where we don't push back against the limitations of our industry and our skill sets. Stepping outside of those bounds and working with the rest of the marketing department opens up new opportunities to, preserve our utility in marketing and to strengthen the position of other marketers and the businesses we work for. I'm Joshua Squires, and this is SEO in 2026.
Joshua, what's your number one SEO tip for 2026?
I think brand marketers should be SEO's best friends.
Brand marketers should be an SEO's best friend, or friends if there are multiple of them. So why is that?
Brand marketing reaches where SEO can't. It drives demand and it drives search interest. SEO has always been an inbound channel, but lately inbound is getting harder. Zero-click searches, AI overviews, the opportunities for us to get the click anymore is increasingly challenging. But brand search has always been very high intent, very high click-through rates, and it's also a ranking signal. So working with our friends over in the brand channel, we should be devising strategies to drive more branded search, and SEOs should be doing more to help the brand teams deliver on all of their work and communicate those results.
So what do brand marketers know that SEOs don't?
They know how to generate demand. Not particularly an SEO's wheelhouse. Some people do, some people are good at it, but that's all the brand does. Brand also has a knack for coining phrase. And this is something I was very fortunate to see early in my career, working with a really great copywriter, really great ACD, being able to coin a phrase that is unique to your client, that is intuitive to your audience, and that you can use to drive search via a keyword or search phrase that nobody else is searching for, that doesn't overlap with your competitors, creates an effective moat.
Okay, so if you're unfortunate in that you don't have a brand marketing team, what should an SEO do then to get more comfortable with that particular task?
Oh, very good question. There's really fantastic resources out there on the web. There's some really great influencers in that space, thought leaders. Definitely advise looking them up, following them for a while, seeing what they have to say. But there's also really great books. One of my favorite is quite an old one, Ogilvy on Advertising, going all the way back to one of the greatest minds in advertising, back when advertising was entirely about brand. Thinking about the concepts of how you frame a brand, the way you convey the messaging, the way you highlight the value and generate that demand. Really fantastic book if you haven't read it. Really good way to get familiar with the mechanics of brand marketing.
Is this still relevant in the age of agentic AI and AI search?
I think it's more relevant than ever. Sure, AI search and agentic search, it's shifting discovery, but discovery is still happening. Much like we saw happen on TikTok over the last 5 years, right? People were discovering brands on TikTok. They were buying straight on TikTok, right? And that's not going to be dissimilar from how we're going to be using LLMs in the future. And so the thing we can learn there is effective brand visibility, effective brand marketing on those platforms is driving those actions. But what we're seeing with LLMs is that people will discover on the platform, they're still going to go back to search for that last and final step. Right? It's almost like a validation step. We still have a ways to go before we fully trust AI. So being effective in our brand marketing, being effective in aiding discovery in a way that supports search, and then having search be there to support those branded terms, when they hit the SERP, is a really effective strategy that not a lot of people have capitalized on.
So should we talk a little bit about specifically how and where SEO should be integrating with brand marketing and in strategy in general? So if they're fortunate enough to have these brand marketers in-house, I would imagine they need to sit down with them, have a conversation with them. Does this need to happen on a regular basis? And what kind of points need to be covered as part of this discussion?
Yeah. So I'm a very big fan of campaign-style project management. I love, getting everybody into a room, getting all the ideas on the table, Everybody's showing up with their little piece of research and then talking about what it is you want to achieve, how you want to achieve it, what is the list of actions that has to happen, and then how do you pace that appropriately? And then at the very end, how are you going to measure success, right? Different teams will measure it in different ways. So I sort of break it out by a couple of different stages. So at the planning stage, right, SEO should be showing up with their keyword research, their competitor research, backlinks, who's talking about our brand, and does the brand team know about it? In my experience, talking to brand or PR, they don't really know that we're getting some of these spillover backlinks from, third-party publishers. They sort of have we're going to go and get a link from the Today Show or Outdoor Life magazine. They don't see the themes of the natural backlinks that occur. Showing up with those things and sort of helping form the conversation, identifying gaps in where our audience is, can help them with their job of disseminating the messaging, right? We can be more effective at that. So coming in at the planning stage and providing all the necessary tools, really critical to getting everything off on the right foot. And then at the execution stage, SEO, we're just going to own optimizing landing pages for the branded phrases that we've helped shape with the brand team. And then managing our SERP appearance. Maybe we have a featured snippet, maybe we want it, maybe we don't. Maybe we have site links showing up that we'd rather not show up. Maybe we don't have them showing and we wish they would. And if you have an international site, making sure that the right pages are showing up for the right audience for your branded terms. We want to ensure that we get, the most useful click possible. Sticking to those steps will get you 90% of the way there. And the first time you try this, it may not go perfect. So track your learnings, track where you could do better, and have your KPIs. Remember that, reporting that SEOs do is going to be very different from what brand looks at, different from what PR looks at. And we can add some value in communicating, well, we may not have generated additional sales, but beyond pure branded mentions across the web, we've increased branded search, we've increased click-through rate, on-site conversion, changes in backlink profile. There's a lot of information that SEOs can use to enrich the overall marketing plan.
You talked about gaps in the user journey there. How much has the user journey changed over the last couple of years? And how do you identify those gaps and plug these gaps?
Yeah, LLMs in particular have really changed it. I think something that SEOs have, I don't want to say ignored, but maybe haven't paid the most attention to is a concept we talk about more on-site search, where there's an initial search and then there's corresponding filtering searches. So I search for once, I don't see quite the thing I'm looking for. So I search again using slightly different language, right? I add additional modifiers and I get different results. And that's always happened in search, but that shows up in Search Console data. And sometimes we get clicks and sometimes we don't. And I think we analyze that very differently from how we should be analyzing and probably will be analyzing the LLM journey, where that's basically query fan out. What additional information does the user need to make an informed decision? Whatever the intent of that initial ask was, they need all of that information and the LLM is going to try to give it to them all in one go. And then at the end, they may take an action. But we have to remember that this could have started as an information finding journey. Maybe they're not ready to purchase something, or maybe they are. I think that's going to be consistent across, the experiences, whether or not the person is ready to convert when they've done this search. But the information gathering is now going to be happening faster. They're more likely to get it all in one session, but we're still going to have to wait for them to take action. And that's where I think brand can sort of step in and push. This is even a good example of where we can tap paid, really great remarketing. Hey, if we did well enough to get you to the website, if we piqued your interest, caught your eye, if our branded term raised an eyebrow and you clicked that result, either in SERPs or in an LLM, we were able to cookie that browser. We can remarket to you all day long to stay top of mind. We can leverage that branded language to basically train your brain for what to search in order to get you to come right back to us.
And something else you also touched upon was the key objectives SEO and brand should be targeting. So what are these objectives and what can they learn from each other, SEO and brand, from the objectives that they've historically targeted?
Very good question. So brand and PR sort of look at the same things, right? They're looking at mentions across the web and who's mentioning us, how much are people talking about us, what is the sentiment, are we growing demand? And search sees that information more at the bottom of the funnel action where we see branded search impressions. For a campaign like this, we'd be targeting to increase branded search. We'd be targeting to generate more branded backlinks. We would want that branded prompt, that language that we're pushing out to become anchor text on third-party websites and things like that. So the checklist is pretty simple, but in terms of strategy or strategic objectives, I think the thing we're trying to get to is strengthening brand identity through a branded phrase that defines either us, the brand, or the product. And product branding is probably a bigger opportunity than overall branding. It's not uncommon to see, particularly no brands, have weaker overall branding. You see this a lot in SaaS, where companies launch fast. Brand identity doesn't go much further than logo and color scheme, and they expect it to develop over time. Putting a little extra effort in and really defining the brand, having branded terms for your products, for your individual solutions, and then training people to search is a great way to, one, stand out, two, prevent competitors from cutting into that user journey. But it's also a great way to rank pages. I don't know if you recall back, I think it actually stemmed from the leaks at the end of last year. We found some more interesting things regarding how Google works that focused on things like nav boost, brand search. I think somebody had found a brand search patent for Google where the number of brand searches was supposed to be an intent signal and would push things up the rankings if Google could connect a branded term to a domain. We can sort of measure all of these as one large tableau and say, well, how many of these moved in a positive direction as we rolled out this campaign? And even if you don't get all of them to move up, some of these things are going to help you gain ranking over time, and subsequent iterations of your campaign should have greater success.
When you say product branding is a bigger opportunity, what do you mean by that? Do you mean incorporating the core brand within the product name and a few descriptive words, or do you mean actually coming up with a specific branded, unique name for the products that you offer?
Definitely a unique branded name for the products. Really great example is Nike's Air Force Ones. If you look at search data for those, Air Force One is the default search term. Sometimes you'll see Nike thrown in as a modifier, but by and large, people search Air Force Ones because it's a cornerstone brand in their entire category of shoes. Something that's maybe more relatable to the audience. I worked at an agency where a client was a proctologist. Very unfun medical experience for anyone that has to go through it. People tend to not take those doctor's appointments. And it was a challenge this doctor's office was having, was to get people to sign up, to commit, to show up to their appointments. The agency decided that they were going to brand the process in a way that made it less scary, less intimidating. And they called it the kinder colonoscopy. And it was on billboards, it was on paid advertising, it was on mailers. They saw more than 100% lift in people making appointments for this because it took away the fear. And all it was smarter branding, right? And there was an actual difference in the product. They did have a different process from other, a differentiating factor from other doctors' offices, but they were smart enough to brand it.
Joshua, what is the key takeaway from the tip you shared today?
I think the biggest takeaway is clicks are eroding and SEOs are becoming backed into a corner, but it's only happening where we don't push back against the limitations of our industry and our skill sets. Stepping outside of those bounds and working with the rest of the marketing department opens up new opportunities to preserve our utility in marketing and to strengthen the position of other marketers and the businesses we work for.
Joshua Squires is an Associate Director of SEO at AMSIV. Find out more over at joshua-squires.com. Joshua, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2026.
Thank you, David.
I've been your host, David Bain. Get your copy of SEO in 2026, the book, over at SEOin2026.com.